Good morning to everyone. The title is The Geometry and Topology of the Primal Distinction, Phenomenology and Cosmos-Sociomorphisms. These are excerpts from a very long monograph, which I'm on the brink of completing. It deals with what I have named the Klein Bottle logophysics, which is a path to healing the Cartesian and other ruptures. It establishes a connection and fusion of the material, imaginal, semiotic, and cognitive domains. It realizes Heidegger's quest to place phenomenology in terms of topology. It is based on non-orientable topologies, which transcend the dual image schema contained of Cartesian dualism, which dichotomizes in terms of inside and outside. So this provides a transdisciplinarian onto-epistemology, that is a fusion of ontology and epistemology, which transcends duality. And the key thesis of this is the existence of a universality of homological correspondences between the patterns in nature, the body-mind, social organization, culture, based on the supradual Klein Bottle logophysics. By supradual, I mean transcending duality. Particularly of this universality is what I call sociocosmomorphisms, in which these homologies that construct sociomorphisms as a collaborative social construct is the comic scale. At the terrestrial level, it's the physical phenomena of the precession of the equinoxes. That is a torsion geometry, which is translated into mythopoetic expressions of all civilizations and establishes a common ground to all religions. So the Klein Bottle logophysics departed from the geometrization program of physics in terms of torsion, that is vortical geometries, which define location in terms of self-reference and alter-reference, reference to the other. Nature's and the subject's constructivism, rather than location as a given objectivity, as in general relativity. So we are pointing here to a construction of reality that includes space and time, which is based on the body-mind. In formal terms, it's the realization, the modern realization of Klein's and Langen problem in terms of Cartan connections, as a rule of parallel transport and comparison of fields of manifolds. That is Bateson's principle of distinction, generating distinctions. So from 2008, we pursued a transdisciplinary unification of science and knowledge in general as a supradual, that is non-dual physics, associated to the Klein Bottle surface. So let's go to the primal distinction, which I propose that it has a geometry and topology. So the primal distinction is about self-reference fused with hetero-refererence, which are the principles for consciousness and nature too. So we have two states, Boyd and the Mark. The Boyd in Presocratic philosophy, it's apeiron, but Stephen Rossen, in a laying out of phenomenology, showed that apeiron is identified with the Klein Bottle phenomenology. These are two very important books. Mark, the other way, in the other hand, performs containment, operating over itself and the void. Thus, self-reference and hetero-reference, alter-reference, establishes a spatialization as well as a time operator. On the plane, Boyd and Mark manifest a two-state logic, dual Boolean logic. However, this gives rise to a four-state De Morgan algebra introduced by Lou Kaufman, from which genomes can be generated recursively and genomes manifest a Moebius strip and Klein Bottle topology in the form of palindromes, in current molecular biology, CRISPRs. To transcend dualism, the primal decision, the plane abandons the plane to self-re-enter, the parting from the plane racing to 3D and returns to it. Instead of the Klein Bottle, which will be the case, Spencer Brown proposed the torus. So this is done transcending dualism through self-penetration, the Klein Bottle, which rather than contain in 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, as a Cartesian object, it is self-contained, which is a radically different way of existence. On the other hand, it's non-hierarchical. It's not like the mamushkas, but heterarchical, upper Klein bottles transcending top-down and bottom-up. This is the form not only of the body of the organism with all its systems collaborating. This is the general form of cultures and societies. The geometry of the primal distinction, we should show, it's the torsion geometry introduced by Elie Cartan, based on cognitive principles, self-reference and hetero-reference. And all physics basically enters into this. Classical and quantum, condensed matter physics, liquid crystals, basic to biology, will manifest as what is called anoronomic phases, Michael Berry phases, vortices, photonics, sounds, microtubules, particularly Rapoport, as Rapoport. So the Klein Bottle can be conceived as the union of 2 Moebius strips with 4 states: outside, 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 inside, inside, outside, inside, inside. These are qualitative states. They can be seen if you look at the left of the monitor. It's produced by identifying in a parallelogram 2 opposite states pointed in the same direction and 2 other ones introducing an asymmetry because they are pointing oppositely. And this establishes an asymmetry, which is the basis for memory as found in cognitive psychology, the bar experiments. In quantum logic, this is the fundamental Hadamard gate. The Klein Bottle is represented as the Hadamard gate of quantum information theory, the single gate that transcends to a logic towards quantum logic. And it's the basic matrix in the algebraic and topological formulation of genomes. So we have, if you look in the right side, 2 figures shows the effect of asymmetry, a self-penetration, which is a self-containment of the surface. So we have a fusion of symmetry and asymmetry, which will construct reality as a social construction. This is no longer the Cartesian world of objects as if contain them in space. It's self-reference. Otherness, the symmetry, becomes selfness as an integrated whole. This is an ecological relation. The environment becomes connected into the wholeness as self-penetration. And this 180 degrees torsion, which are glued to perform those surface, is the primal embodiment of memory as elicited in the complementarity principle due to Roger Shepard for the unconscious brain-mind construal of model of object kinematics and the cognition of music. It turns to be basic to the social construction of reality, what I called sociomorphisms and socio-cosmomorphisms, which bring in the relation with the cosmos at large. So some precedents in supraduality in logic, Aristotle's logic squares, Buddhist philosophy, after Nagarjuna, the Chinese doctrine of Tao, Confucian pragmatics in social interactions too, continuity of organic and matter, acceptation of alterity and coexistence, fair trade, military force for defense, not for ruling over others, multipolarity. It was considered first by Gotthard Gunther, one of the founders of cybernetics, with multi-negation logics. Hegel's, most recently Priest, with the principle of the aletheia. Some contradictions may be true, from which he tried to construct how unity is retrieved from parts. It operates also in language as articulation from which meaning is produced. So supraduality is behind articulation and the production of meaning. We shall get a pan-semiotic universe rather than a pan-psychical universe. As for the hierarchy of this produced, you see here that in this figure, that the innermost core continues transformed to the outermost, and intermediaries act similarly. This is the case of ecological, sociocultural, biological systems. Metabolism is one such system. So let us introduce the perifaces and harmonies, torsion geometry, and the Moebius strip. If we transform, this has to do with the fusion of identity and difference, blending together in surface of self-reference, basically the Moebius strip and the Klein Bottle. So we transform the system on a self-referential, that is a closed path in the abstract space of states. We discover that the state variables return to their initial values and there is no local rate of change for some quantity. But at the final conclusion of the path, it appears a different value, which has to do with the global effect on the parts. Now, there is a manifest physical appearance of the difference with the initial state on returning through a closed loop in state phase. This final stage is called the anharmony or the Michael-Berry phase. So here enters a very basic notion of geometry, the notion of transport, a parallel transport in which you keep the notion of parallelity, in which a state or a vector in space-time, say a crystal, as the introduction of torsion, is through a rule which allows to define transport objects, keeping them parallel. It has also a cyclic character about which the transport is carried or itself brings the issue of cyclicity, as in the case of torsion. Thirdly, the ultimate cognitive operation is of establishing a difference and furthermore second-order difference arising from the one, from the primal one. It is like a second-order differences as proposed by Bateson. The primal example would be the Moebius strip, which is an embodiment of a topological preform of Newton's third law, which is absolutely embodied by the twist and the gluing, in which if you turn around 180 degrees, the better pointing out now becomes pointing in. So you have to give another turn, returning to the original point to retrieve the original state. This is the basic form of Berry-phase as a topological form. And this will give a relation with the golden mean, which is a universal proportion, relation in the universe, both in the mind, both in biology, geometry, and cognition as well. So if you cut a Moebius strip, you get this deformed parallelogram, which will show you again. So it is a construction of locus in terms of self-reference, in which if you look at the left, in the case of a crystal, there is a dislocation line, which in turning around introduces at B, from B to Q dot, a fifth state, which is the one which in the previous unfolding of the Moebius strip we retrieved. So it gives what is called the torsion geometry as the primal distinction and geometric analogy. And rescaling the fifth vector, TUB, equal to the other two being equal to, this gives the golden mean. It is also the case of what is called a screw dislocation, in which you leave the plane, and this is the case of DNA. But it's also the most general form of torsion. DNA, turbulent fluids, magnetodynamics, electromagnetic acoustic waves, and all the quantum fields, Schrödinger, Dirac, Brownian motions, etc. So this introduces torsion as the natural geometry of non-orientability. It appears as the completion of a space or time dislocation which closes a fractured cycle, taking array around the singularity through a path, blending self-reference to produce the closure of the path around the singularity, and alter-reference as the reference to the singularity. These are the two fundamental cognitive principles. So torsion stands as the fundamental geometry of physics, for which psychical processes are the most fundamental. And they are associated at the most fundamental level with spin, particularly quantum physics, fundamental interaction, fluid dynamics, the most pervasive form of matter in the cosmos, biology, chemistry, already in the chemical bonds, through the morphology of molecules, in the topological chemistry paradigm, and in the form as the metaform of matter, as the Klein Bottle form of the Mendeleev periodic table of elements, which is the form of the golden spiral and of a standing wave. It's also the metaform for perception, cognition, and even crucial to music. Torsion is related to another notion of plurinorming that I've just introduced, that of quantum analogy, the very phase, or still the geometrical topological phase, which we discussed just now. It's the Moebius strip, the topological phase, the torsion dislocated crystal, the primal form of analogy of space or state or space-time, or still in the protective here of space quantum mechanics. But it appears, and here comes the fusion with the mind. It appears at the core of the principle of complementarity of cognitive psychology. The modern's representation of motions in physical space and as a corresponding mathematical unconscious modeling by the brain. But it also it's the case of music cognition, the motions of music cognition. So rather being limited to quantum physics, they have been elicited as in optics, electromagnetic systems, electric signal filtering devices, acoustics, gravity phases, etc., etc., etc. Initial development came from the study of torsion geometries and associated physics, which incorporates implicitly a fusion of self-reference and hetero-references. Self-reference, of course, was the basis that was attempted to be left aside by the failed project of Russell and company. While hetero-references, by the neuroscientists know very well, through the mirror neuron phenomenology, the study of mimetics. So mimetics is at a behavioral level is an expression fundamentally of the construction of an homology of the mind and a theory of the mind of the other. So in Klein Bottle physics, self-reference and hetero-references are inseparable. These are the two basic relational processes of consciousness. Now, this emplaces these surfaces of indication as universal forms of semiosis, science processes by referencing indication, particularly when there is no subjective agency. When there is no subjective agency, say, a fluid medium with a vortex pushes a suspended particle inwards, outwards, or to a boundary layer at a third state, a physical form of indication without agency. The same happens for the mind-body. Same as psychology, obsessions, neuroses, archetypes, gestalt formations, multi-stable perception, etc. So it also stands for the metaform of resonance, distance, a fusion of different systems through non-orientable states which mediate the one and the other. So this is what Bateson envisaged as the existence of a universal transcendental metaphor, a pattern which connects, which we have identified, the Moebius strip and the Klein Bottle, as the generic form of this connection by resonance, a meta-pattern. In fact, the Klein Bottle is the metaphor for pattern formation, with and without a subjective agent.
And I'll just give you a 5-minute warning so that we can have about 5 minutes for a Q&A.
Okay. So instead of going to the anatomy, let us go to the sociology and the construction of reality, which already Alexander Bogdanov called sociomorphism, which unfolds in terms of his thesis of the homology of cognitive mindsets and social organizations. So this transcends Cartesian dualism. So he considers in terms of labor, that is, action is the fundamental physical notion. He criticized the dualism and the atomism of the present world and the organization of the world as a disruptor we are testimony of presently. In the sociology of experience by Berger and Luckman, which can be translated into a Klein Bottle phenomenology, they propose that the sociology of knowledge boils down to understand how subjective meaning turn out to constitutive objective facticities, or how is it possible that human activity should produce a world of different things, still in words which cohere with the surmounting of the Cartesian cut, which in fact permeates, as I said, the sui generis construal of social knowledge, an inquiry on the manner of how this reality is constructed. This is based on a perception as a construction, a model of cognition, which we embody and developed, expressing, manifesting a construal of reality, which is based on this anatomical, physiological construal of perception and cognition, as in ecological psychology. So we have changing and multiple realities in which we daily experience as reality par excellence. The parting experience of events appear as existing in space and time. Already, receptive fields in the brain have incorporated, which coin for orientation of objects, have incorporated holography, which support holography, have incorporated into the face the Klein Bottle as its invariance. In all this, language has a crucial role in the construction of this phenomenology through image schemas and cognitive semantics.
And we should
now, in terms of this arose from the principle of complementarity. Yes, excuse me?
Yeah, Diego, if you could conclude now, we could have time for some Q&A.
Okay, so this is already arose from the principle of complementarity in cognitive psychology in terms of motion of objects and in terms of cognition of music. In the case of cognition of music, through a three-tone experiment paradox, This is the ascending and descending echelons. So images, schemas in cognitive semantics and the creation of experience. The languages of daily life provides the image schemas to support this construal of reality. And one of the key image schemas is contained, which is par excellence, the image schema of duality, which dichotomizes in inside and outside. But additionally, there is a contained as a sign image schema, which corresponds to egotism and hegemonics. So in cognitive semantics, it defines linguistic-based icons in terms of which meaning is organized through location-referred terms. They may be conceived as linguistic positional archetypes, similar to Jung's archetypes. While contained organizes reality as an inside-outside dichotomization, and the dual logophysics and ontoepistemology involves in terms of contain, fracturing the world which we construct, a fractured world. Contain as a sign further assigns truth as self-attributed by the inside, as organizing center of reality and its representations. This is the hegemonism's self-writer.
Okay, just 10 more seconds to just...
So this is, you are with me or against me, or as Jan Assmann calls it, it is the mosaic code of monotheism. So supraduality begs to disagree. These are a list of references.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Diego.
Thanks to you.
All right, we're just a few minutes behind, but that's all right. So there are a couple questions in the room now. I'll start with Lou.
I'm trying to...
Diego, I just wanted to thank you for this beautiful evocation of the Klein Bottle in relation to self-reference creation. Klein Bottle being almost in our experience, in the crossed boundary between our experience and what may be our experience. And I wanted to share with you the quote of René Thom, which is, "Geometry is successful magic."
Thank you for the quote, Lou. It's glad to greet you again.
Hello. Thanks, Diego, for that talk. This is Philip here. I'd like to ask the question that that magic self-reference that crosses that tension of inside and outside, or movement and structure. Why do you specifically start with the Klein Bottle as a representation of it? Surely the Klein Bottle is an expression of it, but that underlying sort of paradoxical tension and how you cross it is something that's kind of more fundamental in itself.
Because in distinction with the Moebius strip, it already manifests the full transcending act of Cartesianism, which dichotomizes inside and outside. And as the whole physiology and anatomy, I skipped those, excuse me. I don't know how to use this. I skipped those, okay, here it is. I skipped this part, the topographical representations of the sensorium, the visual and somatosensory mode of touching, basic to empathy, has for topology, the cortical representation has for topology the Klein Bottle. And it is also the case of vision, how we see the world, how we relate to the world when we are looking at it and we are moving, running as in this scheme over here. So it's going beyond the containment dichotomy, and stating on this principle, I simply found it everywhere. It is not that I had to put it into the scheme. It arose. When I study biology, or I study sociology, or I study the juridical system, it's there. It's manifest there. It's manifest in our reality. I was born in a country, Argentina, which is the epitome of paradox. So I had the fortune, or the misfortune, if you wish, to learn this since I was an infant. So this was my experience with which I raised myself. I came to be. So to me, all this is very familiar. I hope this answers your question.
Thank you.
That's an excellent response. Thank you, Diego. Okay, let's thank Diego.
Thank you, guys.